So sometimes when we talk about business, we have this top-down approach where we talk about the vocabulary or the definitions or the concepts, and then just sort of how they would apply to everyone, or for example, what just memorizing definitions. These news stories are a bit more of what we would say is a bottoms-up approach, where we try to figure out, based on what's happened in this individual story or this individual case, what can we learn from it? And so some of the adjustments that businesses have made, it's sort of, we've been talking about sort of being creative in business, and I think there is um, that element of creating new ideas. And so these are some examples of businesses that created new ideas that we can learn from. And maybe you might have noticed some in your own day-to-day, going out for walks or in the news, some adjustments that they've made. So one thing that they're doing is targeting different consumers. Instead of the traditional target market, they're trying to find a new group to target. So I don't think I had time to mention this vocabulary in class, or if I did, I talked about it during the business plan and glanced over it. So there can be two different main marketing strategies: B2B, business to business, when one business sells to another business, and then B2C, targeting a consumer, business to consumer. And it's, two different ways to do business. B2B would be a transaction with another company, like a wholesaler that buys a lot, or an importer that buys a lot and then sells them to other retailers. And that's usually going to be in large quantities, and there's often a small number of large clients, although there could be small businesses that are, small clients, but usually it'll be yeah, maybe I did type the wrong, because I have a class at 1, and I think what I realized this morning is I typed in the grade 11 class time in the grade 10 classroom. So that one's on me, but we're here now, and I guess we'll keep going. So, and business to business, it often has a long process of submitting a quote. The quotes are reviewed, the company approves them, and they usually go with the the lowest quote. There can be a really, really long process of getting that first sale. Whereas business to consumer, it's many small transactions selling to one person at a time, either in a bricks and mortar, in a store, or in online retailing. Usually advertising is needed for business to consumer. To convince people to come to your store, it's based on the local community in the area. Whereas business to business, it's more like you call, they ask you for a quote. It's not really based on advertising. So workspaces are closed, restaurants are closed, so people need the product at home. And they still want their coffee, for example, but they're not gonna. There's not gonna be any, you know, cafe at work. So Barista is a company in Montreal. They normally sell coffee to businesses in bulk to serve in their kitchens. However, they're starting to sell smaller sizes and targeting e-business. And they're also encouraging people to sign up to the subscription service where they get a fresh bag of coffee each week. So rather than send a box of coffee to a workplace, hopefully their strategy will be to maintain as many of those individual customers as possible. And psychologically, people don't want to cancel things. Once people sign up for something, they tend to continue. People will cancel eventually, but they tend to continue. So if you can get someone to sign up for a subscription service, they'll continue. So they're trying to really push their coffee subscription service to everyone who's working at home. And then we talked about indirect channels. There's many intermediaries between the producer and the consumer, and those intermediaries, they assume risk, but they make profits. So you, as the producer, you might give up some profit in exchange to have, a few sure sales, whereas direct channels are directly from the producer to the consumer. It's good because the consumer has an ability to give feedback to the person who made the product. So a lot of companies, they're switching from indirect to direct. So, and like, for example, there's a company, Mr. Produce, that is in Kensington Market. They're offering fresh, they normally sell to restaurants. They're offering home delivery of fresh produce. There's companies doing that for fish, for meat, for baked goods. They normally target restaurants, but they're offering delivery services instead. So normally there's a lot of reorders, and but that's not happening. So they're pushing the home deliveries. So, oh, this slide's a little out of order. One thing that's happening also is companies are going online. There's a nightclub. They're offering a virtual nightclub because they understand that there won't be any more nightclubs until a vaccine happens, because you can't stay 6 feet apart in an entertainment setting. Sky Zone out in Leaside, they have trampolines there. They do a lot of birthday parties. They can't really stay 6 feet apart. They're trying to move online. Companies might not understand how to go online, so the Government of Ontario, the City of Toronto, the Ontario Business Improvement Association are providing grants of $2,500 for businesses to go online, and it's also a way to employ some of the 1,400 students who lost their jobs because there was less summer jobs this year. So Digital Main Street is a private-public partnership to get people to go online. Although, one thing that is happening, and it's businesses, it's not a matter of just putting the website out there and forgetting about it. It's the first time a lot of these businesses are doing so much online, and there's been a lot of technical difficulties, because instead of it just being 1 or 2 people ordering online, everyone orders online, and businesses have had to offer some refunds. There's been some apologies offered online. It's one of those things where businesses, it's not just set it and forget it. San Remo was a bakery near Humberside. First day they tried to do their online ordering, the whole system crashed. So there has been some technical issues. So companies have had to offer special promotions or make special announcements just to maintain that relationship with customers. Okay, so marketing ideas. Using social media to just keep that relationship going. A big television ad with a big expense, a big lead time isn't going to work right now. But companies that are trying to, use social media to keep that connection going. They're trying to reach out to people. They can post more. Social media allows them to post more posts. They can put brand reminders on there. They can be creative. They can offer new types of services, a lot of smaller interactions. It's not that big message that convinces everyone to buy the product, but it's a little small interaction. So in the morning, that bakery, San Remo out on Royal York, they post their coffee and donuts. At lunch, they post their sandwiches. They're just trying to be out there as much as possible to keep the relationship going. Other companies are trying to sell new products. So on the left-hand side, this is a tailor. They normally do bespoke suits. They're trying to offer bespoke jogging pants to bespoke casual pants, because people apparently are not, they're not really buying new pants at the moment, or new bottoms, because they're always teleconferencing. So this company, they're trying to get people who instead of buying a new suit, to buy new custom jogging pants. And then a restaurant on Davenport, they're doing takeout. They normally do a lot of fried chicken. Um, it's hard to grab a plate of fried chicken to go. Um, so they're offering it as kind of a cone of fried chicken and mac and cheese, for people to grab as they walk along Davenport. Trying to be creative to get people to keep coming back to the business. There's a Locals for Locals, Toronto. They're getting businesses to partner together. You can buy a goodie bag of different products from these local businesses, like buns, coffee, drink, beauty products, food, candies, and they throw in a donation to the Daily Bread Food Bank. It's a way to get more sales going, because takeout might be about 25% of the normal business. So having um, another way to get sales is good. Or I noticed there's an NT alumnus. He works for Elite Camps, which is normally does stay over basketball camps. They're opening up their cabins to families that want to take a week-long retreat. They can go use the dock. They can use the campfire. It's easier for a family to keep separate than a whole bunch of young kids. So it's just a way, how can they get their property open and get some money coming in, and being creative and looking at alternative arrangements is really key. One mess thing you might see is adding more empathy or altruism to the marketing message. So empathy is understanding. So when they say, hey, we know times are different, or thanking frontline workers, that would be empathy. When they do a donation to a cause, when they try to raise awareness, they are adding more altruism. And it just, it's a way to just keep that relationship going. And also, the safety procedures is another way to show empathy, because they're just showing that they care for each other. So here's, Miami Fades. They're on Yonge Street. They posted something about their new uniforms, about how they're going to be, it's going to be a way to keep things clean. Saibo, that's also on Yonge Street. They can't open right now except for takeout, so they're sending meals down to the hospitals and to frontline workers. And whenever they do that, they post something online. And again, it adds that element of charity to their marketing, and just to keep the relationship going. Unfortunately, sometimes it is necessary to restructure. So bankruptcy, it doesn't mean that the business closes permanently. What it means is they're insolvent. They don't have enough assets to meet their liabilities, to meet their obligations. It can go, a couple of things can happen. It can go into receivership, which means the secured creditors like banks, other people who have lent money for which there's collateral, other suppliers can receive some payments for their debts. In that case, a trustee liquidates the assets to pay off as many debts as possible. Or the alternative is companies go into creditor protection, which they say, look, we did hit a rough patch, but we want to stay in business. They go into creditor protection for a few months. It allows them to restructure their business, and then hopefully they're more profitable when they come out. So bankruptcy doesn't mean that the business is permanently closed. Receivership means that they are going to be broken up to pay the creditors, but an alternative is to go into creditor protection and do a restructuring. So I saw this. How much do you think you can estimate you can stay in business? And 61% thought that they wouldn't make it through the summer. So this was at the start of May. how much longer can you go? 17% said, well, just the end of May. 21% said the end of June. 23% said the end of July. So a lot of businesses, they're really, it's fragile. Now, they've said that bankruptcies are not as high as they first thought, that they thought maybe there'd be uh, a big number of bankruptcies, and it turned out so far it's been below expectations. But that just the second point of those news stories were that a lot of businesses are in really rough shape. So one near the school that you might have walked by, the Rose and the Crown, they're posting on BBI2O, on social media, on Reddit, hey, come by and order takeout from us because we will not be around if you don't by the time this is over. So they've been in business for 40 years, and they're begging, they're pretty much, their social media campaign right now is begging people to come to the store, so they come to the restaurant so they can stay in business. To avoid bankruptcies, and which would lead to unemployment, which would lead to empty buildings, which would lead to community businesses leaving communities, the government of Canada and the government of Ontario have an emergency commercial rent assistance program where the government pays 50% of the rent, the landlord pays 25%, and small businesses pay 25%. The idea is if there's an empty building, it could take a while to fill, especially in this climate. That South Street Burger and Fries at Broadway and Yonge went out of business last April, and the building's been empty for over a year. So that's the risk if someone isn't evicted. So the idea is this program will encourage companies to stay in their location, and hopefully in 3 or 4 months' time, they're back, back on their feet, and the landlord takes a small hit, the business takes a small hit, they each pay 25% of the rent, but the government subsidizes the rest. However, there's 1.2 million small businesses in Ontario, and only in the first couple of weeks, only 16,000 applied for this program. Partially, it was thought because it was too complicated, and secondly, the landlord they don't want to cover the 25% of the rent themselves. They want all the rent. So something that happened in the last couple of weeks was the Ontario government has banned evictions from June to August, and it was to encourage landlords to participate in the Canadian Emergency Commercial Rent Program. Not everyone was happy about this. Some of the small businesses felt that it should have been extended to include people who stopped paying their rent back in March and April when the crisis first started. So you can see a bit of a restructuring. Starbucks, they're closing 200 locations to focus on drive-through and pickup. They had one pickup-only location in Commerce Court. That's the one that's shown here. And some businesses might just be pickup only. And you might have also noticed that the Black Lives Matter has been a big news story. So what are businesses doing about that? It's a matter of showing empathy. So you might have seen people on their social media posting an announcement. A fitness club was starting fitness classes for minority groups. True Local was offering grants to minority business owners, donating proceeds. Some local businesses were donating their proceeds in the first couple of weeks of June, and just articles encouraging people to patronize minority businesses. So those are some things you can do. Now, unfortunately, not every current events marketing ends well. So an ice cream company, a gelato company in Calgary made a chocolate mint chip Black Lives Matter ice cream. that they had to pull off the market within 2 to 3 hours. So you can see that that's not the best, idea, right? I think you want to be empathetic. You want to reach out and you want to tell the community that you're helping. So a donation can be good, um, a special, that like a grant, a don't like something to raise awareness. But then I think when we look at this ice cream container, it kind of trivializes a very serious matter. So every now and then, businesses, they try to, I don't think they were trying to be offensive, but the net effect was that it was a very offensive, announcement. And within hours, they had to take this product off the market. I don't know how you can teach a person to have common sense, but maybe if you were this business owner, show this container to a few of your friends and get some feedback before launching it publicly, and probably they would have said, yeah, that's not the best label right now. Nothing's wrong with chocolate mint gelato, but maybe that label is problematic at the moment. So